What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
Shredlord.
Jammin Jon.
And we have an album review for you. Kind of a nice, gross thing for you guys to digest after your Thanksgiving meals.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and believe me, you're going to probably want to throw it up after you hear some of these song titles. We're going to go over the debut full length from Stenched, Purulence Gushing from the Coffin.
That's a mouthful right there, and not just of pus.
Oh yeah, there's other fluids in there. None of it's going to taste good.
Unless you're into that sort of thing. Then it probably tastes like gravy, baby.
Or baby gravy.
It's probably in the mix.
Anyway, this comes out, well, kind of around this time. Like, we saw that it was, streaming on some platforms early, but, physical media didn't come out till later, so we just decided to cover it this week. This band formed in 2023 in Mexico. This is a one-man act, too. This is, again, the debut full-length. I actually went over their first demo, Gorging on Mephitic Rot, which was absolutely lovely and gross, and I don't think I need to tell you that this is just an absolutely foul, gross death metal band. Everything on here, in terms of the art, in terms of the song titles we're about to say, should 100% echo that.
I have never heard of Stenched before, other than my own personal stenchings, which I would either lay upon close friends and family, since it is the holiday season, or these knuckleheads right here. As a matter of fact, I did rip unholy ass while reviewing this album.
Even had the courtesy to pause the music so we could hear it.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure that my ass was heard. This butt trumpet doesn't just play for anybody, okay? You should actually be thanking me.
It does. Don't let him fool you. He'll play that butt trumpet for really anybody at any given time.
You give him the intercom code at a Walmart and he'll play that butt trumpet through it.
That's actually one hell of an idea. But what will make anybody hit the brown note is a lot of this guttural, low-end death metal that you hear right from the rip going. The opening track, Morbid Mass of Repulsive Purulence, immediately shows what this album and this band is all about. It is just about being as gruesome and gross as possible, starting with just twisting melodies. It also brings a heaviness that sounds like Metal Mario's nutsack was curb stomped into the 7th layer of hell.
That is pretty accurate. Also, put on a thick layer of just kind of disgusting grit across this whole thing.
Pus. Lots of pus.
Pus. Other fluids. Dealer's choice there. I mean, whatever you have available. But this is that style of death metal that I would say firmly latches on to the ever-rotting teat of Autopsy and then kind of goes even beyond that, like Impetigo, definitely Cryptworm, which I believe are label mates here, because I believe this is officially out on Misako and Ojo Records.
Ohio gozaimasu.
Yes,
Have some.
Yeah, and unto thee.
a lot of this is just flat out primal. I mean, you could call it caveman death metal, but I mean, I don't know, it kind of latches more onto gore. Kind of like this weird gray area between like Autopsy's just worship of all things gory and grimy, and like Carcass's worship of all things gory and grimy, but like in, doctor's aprons. Baseline though, this is just built on just swampy, disgusting riffs. The production on here is probably exactly what this gentleman was going for. It sounds absolutely filthy.
In a raw sort of way, though. Like raw chicken baking in the sun. Or diving headfirst into a grease trap and then eating your way out from the bottom. It's got that kind of sound to it. Very natural sounding drums, the guitars, albeit steeped in filth and drenched in dissonance and grime. I mean, it's very natural. There's not a lot of effect going on. Maybe some light reverb and a little bit of warbling that happens throughout most of the record.
The one thing that I also noticed as we were going throughout this album is, while everything is greasy and grimy, it's a lot of the same variety of grease and grime. Mm-hmm. I equated it to Taco Bell. It's got about five or six ingredients.
Five or six layers.
That they are reserving me in different ways. And that's okay. The food is still good, but aside from a couple tracks where they would inject certain things like a few guitar melodies here with some dissonance, really the guitar melodies are the one thing in certain songs, especially in the middle of the album, Suppurating Cranial Cavity and Death Maniacal Obsession. Those songs really stood out to me on a creative level in this because of the riffs having a little bit more character. And while everything on this album kind of goes quickly, because everything's a 3 or 4 minute song, when everything's going so quickly and you have these little dissonant melodies and things that kind of add character, those are the things that stick out to me in my mind when I'm done listening.
For me, like a lot of it is again like blunt force trauma riffing, except like this hammer's just like beating corpses in the head with a meat tenderizer. It's very simple, very straightforward, and honestly, with the production here, like almost any chord they hit is gonna sound like the filthiest, grossest thing. Like this guitar tone sounds like someone distorted a pot of boiling vomit, and that's probably exactly what they were going for. Like, yeah, that sounds as gross as I think this riff would smell if riffs smelled. Stylistically, Autopsy I still think is like probably the biggest comparison. The drum work on here kind of has that Chris Reifert sort of style where it's very punky, it's very loose. There's a lot of fun fills and like some cool cymbal work that pops up on it, but it's those hard transitions into Death Doom breakdowns. Because when this album does a Death Doom breakdown, it is like the swampiest, grossest thing.
And remember earlier when I was talking about sticking your head into a grease trap and then eating your way up from the bottom? Songs like Worm-Ridden Torso and Eye Socket Pus Emanation, doesn't that sound good? Or smell good for that matter?
Just like Mom used to make.
Again, it's Thanksgiving here, guys. We're about to eat all sorts of fun things, just like this guy is. Yeah, those two breakdowns, while I thought Worm-Ridden Torso had a nasty kind of Death Doom breakdown, it wasn't until I got to Suppurating Cranial Cavity that it turned into Funeral Doom, which was about as heavy as it got. And then once again, Eye Socket Pus Emanation, just gross. And I mean, there's not a whole lot to it as far as the riff is concerned, but with Death Doom there doesn't have to be. It's just about slow and lurching and gnarly grossness.
Yeah.
And that's what these songs are.
Single chords droning out, and you know, hearing that point where it descends so low that the guitar and bass kind of mold into this one just lump of muddy, pussy, fucking organ-drenched just nastiness. Eye Socket Pus Emanation in particular, like that descending melody, like it just drags you down to this pit of fucking gnarled corpses where this album was probably recorded.
One thing we really haven't talked about yet either is the vocal performance on this. And I will say that I don't necessarily think it was bad. However, it wasn't my personal favorite stylistic wise. And that's for a few different reasons that we were actually discussing in between songs. One, almost felt like it was too up in the mix maybe. The other is maybe it needed to have a little bit less dryness on it and maybe some more effects. Give it a cavernous vibe, maybe, you know, make it boom out a little bit more, fuzz it up a little bit.
Yeah, like reverb honestly could have probably fixed a lot of the issues. Like the delivery it's almost more of a groan or a gurgle, but where it sits in the mix, like very out front and very dry, like it's just kind of there. It doesn't have like the impact. Like, you know, again, you listen to Autopsy, Chris Reifert is right out front, but his dramatic flair can totally make a song, like the alternating between high screams and low gurgles. Here it's a very uniform low delivery, and there's just not a lot of character to it. A little bit of reverb and having the vocals pushed back in the mix, you kind of get that cavernous effect. And that would totally work with the style. Like this actually kind of begs for like some cavernous vocals. But it also kind of begs for vocal variety too. Like a couple of like solid harrowing screams in the distance, or just like a kind of a revved up growl where it starts off low and then kind of echoes out a bit. I think the only vocal variety I got on here was Ecstasy Through Pestilence, where it sounds like he kind of just hawks one on the mic and then goes to town. Musically though, like there's a lot of fun stuff on here, and if you're just like a big fan of old school death metal, like you just want that meat and potatoes, or you know, whatever this album's serving. Honestly, anytime that dinner bell ride goes off, I don't think they're serving anything other than something gross like, I don't know, colostomy bag pudding.
That's my favorite.
Just like Mom used to make.
Dark, rich,
Like
chocolate
Grandpa
flavor.
used to make.
Oh, that's the
After he
chunky
came
kind.
back from the war.
But still, you get a lot of just like hefty riffs. And while there's not like a tremendous amount of creativity in the riffs, I think there's just a lot of just kind of old school grimy death metal fun in this. Like, I would totally revisit this just because I like ultra gross death metal, and it is more than just the song titles on here. Like the whole vibe in this album, while it definitely sounds like a lot of bands that I've heard before that I love, and you know, I wouldn't exactly call it fresh, but in terms of what this band does, it's about as fresh as a bag of medical waste found in an abandoned hospital. And that's probably kind of the thing that they wanted. Like, this is just absolutely dripping with gnarliness. Like, there's really no room for any extra atmosphere in here because every moment in here is just dominated by this absolutely sludgy, gross music. While I do like this, though, I do think that there needs to be, like, just a little bit more variety because the songs kind of did run together. You know, this is a good foundational release, like, in terms of a debut. Like, yeah, you're kind of out there, you got your sound. It isn't much of a departure from the demo, and it kind of captures all that filth for people that just like to say, oh, well, I like the demos more than the actual album, because this is that kind of band where I think you'd run into those people. So overall, I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars. This is grimy, filthy, rotten fun. I do kind of wish for like some more dynamics, especially in the vocals. Like, there's just moments in here where, like, you know, a big John McEntee style, like, kind of roar would really work on here. But it's got the riffs, it's got the grimy production. Honestly, I really wouldn't change a thing there. And yeah, like, this is just filthy old school death metal. If you're a big fan, again, of Autopsy specifically, but also like Cryptworm, Witch Vomit, Molder, maybe Fluids too.
Yeah.
Just check this out. It's just grimy fun.
I'm going to give this a 3, and I'll tell you why. I thought this was solid. I do think that, once again, as Nick said, they had a certain sound in mind, and you absolutely nailed it. However, on the next offering, I would like to hear a little more variety in what is offered. Maybe some little bit variety in the vocals, be it effects, be it different things of that nature, and just personal preference. Some of those riffs are pretty slamming, obviously. Don't be afraid to let them breathe a little bit longer. Like, you can have, dare I say, a 5-minute song instead of a 4-minute song. It's going to be all right, and it's still going to sound good. And in the school of death metal, there's a lot of different camps as well, and we all kind of have our own preferences and stuff. Dare I say, maybe some more melodies, guitar melodies. Not every album has to have leads and blah, blah, blah. I'm not sitting here trying to put a lead into everything, although I would if I could, but I can't. But once again, as far as a listening goes, the things that stood out to me were the songs where they had those dissonant melodies on top of the other good stuff that they already had going. It's just the earworm kind of stuff that makes you think about it once again when the album's turned off. So, solid debut, 3 out of 5.
I too am gonna go 3 out of 5. It was a decent offering. It is gross. It is filthy. Someone made a stinky, and it turned my face stanky throughout most of this record. Albeit it had a rinse and repeat formula to it, it is full of constant descending tremolos, which are gnarly. It's got a bunch of awesome chuggy moments. There's definitely dissonance steeped all over this record. I just would like to see it kind of wane a little bit from its rinse and repeat formula and maybe just add a little bit more by way of dynamic to these songs. Instead of making it gross intro, gross verse, stompy moment, blasty moment, and then death doom moment, maybe just mix it up a little bit. Nonetheless, it is a pretty solid record. I'm not a real big fan of the vocals either. I think he just needs to do something with them, whether it be put some reverb on them, or whether it be add a little bit more than just that low kind of gurgled growl that you find in a lot of like old school brutal death metal, like Mortician, stuff like that. But again, not a bad record. If you're a big fan of bands, definitely like Autopsy, Incantation, Ritual Necromancy, a bunch of whatever Nick mentioned, I don't even remember anymore, but that, you're probably going to want to check this out, so do that.
We say rinse and repeat, assuming that this album washes its hands or anything.
It doesn't. There's not a thing of soap nor sanitizer within 100 miles of this record.
Easily.
It's grime and regrime.
Yeah.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also now have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and we are going to be doing more members-only streams, maybe once a month, maybe once every other month. December, we might not do them because holidays, madness, blah, blah, blah. You know, the holidays are always so much fun. We also have dumb emojis, which is a thing that we have. And this is pretty much our new way to support the channel, getting us away from Patreon and helping us pay for StreamYard, raising prices, yada, yada, yada. If you would like to join up, there is a join button down below. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats and such, and that is linked down below in the description.
And as always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal, whether it be album reviews, discography rankings, multiple discussion forums, multiple segments, states of metal, is it metal, is it not metal, Nick's never-ending collection updates, because this fucker's never gonna ever quit collecting ever, so you're gonna see that. All of what we do here at Thralls of Metal is all for you guys. We appreciate all our subscribers, our family, our friends, everybody that supports us. It is wild to think we're almost at 20,000 subscribers. That's just fucking huge. I'm really excited. I think we're all pretty thankful for that. And I've said a bunch of thank yous, and now I'm gonna let these guys thank you.
Thank you. As a famous 90s singer once said, it's all for you. Pew. Janet Jackson, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
Okay,
'Cause,
yeah.
It
Sorry,
could have been a lot of them.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yeah. It could have been Sister Hazel.
Could have been Zach Wilde.
Oh, well,
Did
that's
you do that
real,
in the 90s?
That's a really
Not in the
obscure thing.
90s.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Either way, thank you guys so much for every bit of support you guys give us, and we will catch you later.